The most talked about topic by public figures lately is the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'm sure you've heard about it, right? In this Fourth Industrial Revolution period, you should not only work harder, but also smarter. If you don't work smarter, you'll wind up just being frustrated. You might even work yourself to death. That's why the term smart work is becoming more common these days. How can we begin to work smarter, though? You must continually embrace new information and knowledge. Be ready to accept that you don't know everything. I'll tell you by showing a PowerPoint slide explaining why you should be doing that. There are two types of thinking, principle-centered and profit-centered. In this world, to be more precise, in this natural world, it's you who chooses and controls your actions. However, it's the law of nature that determines results. One's actions can never control the results. For instance, it's your choice to want to throw a stone up in the air, isn't it? However, you have no power in its falling to the ground. What controls that? That's up to the law of universal gravitation. Let's say you hit a rock in the heat of the moment. What happens? Does your fist hurt or the rock? Your fist hurts. Why does it hurt? It's because of Newton's third law of motion. It's a reaction to your action. If you hit a rock, it hits you back with an equal amount of force. The rock is not going to put up with that. In other words, it's purely your decision to hit the rock. However, the result depends on a law of nature. Principles are laws that are applicable at all times and places, regardless of people they affect. Principles do not change. So once you accept them, they can be applied to everyone. Profit-centered thinking is beneficial to you, so you think that way. What would happen if you employed profit-centered thinking? Your actions would keep changing. Why? Because profit centers keep changing. And you would become disoriented. Disorientation causes flattery. Flattery, in other words, pretty words. And insinuating countenance is meant to confuse and seduce the other party. There's a saying in the Analects of Confucius that represents the general idea of the entire book. Fine words and an insinuating appearance are seldom associated with true virtue. No virtuous human operates this way. History has been a witness to this saying. I'm going to introduce you value theory. Value can be classified into intrinsic and instrumental values. An intrinsically valuable thing is worth having for itself. Examples for intrinsic values are truth, goodness, beauty, honoring parents, gratitude, love, appreciation, salvation, and consideration. Things like this are valuable as themselves, so we call their value intrinsic. On the other hand, instrumental values are a means towards something else that is beneficial to you. What are they? Money, power, rank, pleasure, status, and so forth are sought after because they are beneficial to you. Interestingly, instrumental values have different worth and practicality depending on the person, place, or time. In the instance of money, it can be of utmost importance at this moment in your life, but later in life, it might not mean much. Again, instrumental values are sought after because they bring benefit to you. But people assign different values to them, and even for the same person, that worth might vary as time goes by. Profit-oriented people would actively pursue these values. Their prime interest would be how those values benefit them, and they wouldn't hesitate for a moment to pursue them. Next, value in being and value in use. Value in being refers to values that are worthwhile in themselves. Their worth doesn't exist when used, but exists as it is. What can it be? Your old folks. What are your old parents good for? Their beings themselves are of value to us. In my family's case, when my grandmother was living, all my relatives got together on holidays. Since her death, we rarely get together. Her existence itself was the unifier of the family, wasn't it? My next example is national treasures or ancient artifacts. You all have seen our national treasure number 1 going in and out of Seoul, right? That gate, Korea's national treasure number 1, has value just by existing and gives pleasure to citizens. It is called value in being. Value in use is the value you get by using it. Everything we regard as valuable, such as money, has that. Principle-centered thinking puts importance in its value in being. Let me share a Chinese saying with you. From the Book of Changes, one of the Chinese classics. You might think it is some gibberish, but it has been proven true by scholars. A family that has been generous with good deeds will experience abundance in delightful events. That's from the Book of Changes. Abundance in delightful events can be interpreted in 2 ways. One way to look at it is that more favor will be returned to you than you have given. In other words, if you are generous, not only will you benefit, but your posterity will benefit also. On the flip side is that commitment of many evil deeds brings endless disaster. A family that has committed many evil deeds will suffer disasters worse than what they have done. The good deed here refers to realizing intrinsic values such as truth, goodness, beauty, gratitude, consideration, redemption, and love. If generous with these virtues, you will be doused with a bigger return. That's the moral here. How about pursuing instrumental values? In other words, those who take advantage of others for profit and are ungrateful for the goodness they received are committing the sin of being not good or evil. Not only will you suffer disasters, your posterity will experience greater harm. Believe it or not, this has been clinically proven in the U.S. For instance, it is said that if you help out someone, your immune system will improve and you will live longer. Truly. Additionally, it has been proven that the germ-killing properties in your saliva tend to grow tenfold. However, if your deeds are intentional, you won't benefit. Only when you help out people with a pure heart, you get to live longer, and your immune system will be boosted. It's been medically proven. That's the lesson this adage teaches us. Next, independence or autonomy. Leaders with principle-oriented leadership don't have to be in such a hurry. How come? Their partners move about in principles, don't they? The leaders teach their partners principles, and their partners observe the principles in return. Therefore, the leaders can enjoy a balance between life and work. How would an organization with profit-centered leadership operate? The members of that sort of organization are always on the lookout for profit, so their actions are without principle. Their members walk on eggshells since they don't know what the leaders might order. Eventually, that organization dies out. Their action plans are always wishy-washy. Next, let's read a poem by Chu Shi. Read the poem and take it to heart. Last night's pouring rain swelled up the river. You can also say, the spring season melted the ice into water. This poem was written during a war and is describing a natural phenomenon, making a huge warship light like a feather. I had struggled to move it around until now. Why struggle? It had been stuck in the muddy beach, only to see it floating around. Now take a look. A huge warship is now stuck on a muddy beach and they are having a hard time moving it around. It rained all night, causing the ship to float. What you're seeing is an ancient Chinese battleship. When natural laws are followed, tangled up problems will unravel easily. When water rises, buoyancy makes everything float. What else is it teaching us? There is the most opportune time for everything. Don't rush. When spring rain comes down, the vessel will float. Simply put, it's not quite time for you to be a star master. What would happen if you forced it? Your partners would have to use a pulley to lift you up because you are sunk in the mud and are very heavy and burdensome. They would have to keep holding you up until their arms hurt and they let you go. Then you would fall into the mud only to sink deeper. That's what this poem is teaching you. You want to follow the natural law. At the rising tide, the ship rises. My favorite saying, again, at the rising tide. The ship will float naturally. You won't need to force it upward. In other words, if you have more partners, your mastership will go up naturally. Don't force it. You will suffer from unintended ill consequences. The water in this poem represents your personal presence and your virtues, which will take you to a higher position. For example, for you to become a star master, the support has to come from down below, not push you forcefully upward. It's like you're hanging from a rope, and if the rope is taken away, you'll sink down deeper than before. Next, principle-centered leadership, which was established by Stephen Covey. There is a city called Salt Lake City in Utah. He was the vice president of a school called Brigham Young University and a professor of management. What a great scholar he was. He was also the CEO of a consulting firm, Stephen Covey. He was in the consulting business for 40 years with this theory of principle-centered leadership. His main teaching is that when principles are observed, things are most efficient. He wrote a book about characteristics of leaders who are principle-centered. How many characteristics did he mention? 8 of them. What's the first trait? They are continually learning. Second, they are service-oriented. In other words, they are not self-seeking. Third, they radiate positive energy. People feel the positive energy surrounding such a leader. Fourth, they believe in other people. Next, they live balanced lives. Here, balanced means their work and life are balanced. They are neither workaholic nor lazy. Sixth, they see life as an adventure, meaning they keep seeking challenges. Seventh, they are synergistic. Synergy is a combined effect greater than the sum of its separate effects. When 2 persons with force of 1 are combined, they have a force of 3 instead of 2. That's synergy. Eighth, they work for self-renewal. Every day, they improve themselves. We'll cover each of these quickly but in depth. First of all, continual learning. Why do we need to learn continually? This is Mr. Richard Buckminster Fuller, who was the 2nd president of Mensa. According to his calculations, the time required to double the amount of the knowledge of the human race was 100 years up until 1900. In other words, the knowledge you acquired in your youth was more than enough for your entire life. The doubling took only 25 years after World War II, and nowadays it takes only 13 months. By 2030, it will decrease to 3 days. After that, IBM's calculations came up with 12 hours. Simply put, if you graduate in the morning, when the next day starts, you're obsolete. The rate of increasing knowledge is just mind-boggling. Does that mean we have to learn all that knowledge? We can't. It's impossible. That's why we need to be good listeners. What did Isaac Newton, the genius of geniuses, say? What we know is a drop of water. What we don't know is an ocean. A genius like Newton said this. Socrates said, "True knowledge exists in knowing that you know nothing." The only good is knowledge, and the only evil is ignorance. A very powerful king in India asked one of his vassals, Which is more evil, the wrong you commit without knowing it, or the wrong while you are aware? The vassal said, the evil committed without knowing it is worse. When asked by the king, he explained when one commits an evil act knowingly, he exercises a certain degree of care because it's bad. On the other hand, committing an evil act unknowingly knows no boundary. The wise man asked the king, who is burned worst? One who touches hot metal, knowing it's hot, or one that touches it without knowing it's hot? It works like that. Socrates said the only good is knowledge and the only evil is ignorance. Being knowledgeable and being ignorant is not decided by the amount of knowledge you have. It's never distinguished by how much you know. There's just too much information out there and we can know only so much. How can we tell who's knowledgeable and who isn't? Those who acknowledge they know little are considered knowledgeable. Let's talk about Lao Tzu, who was an aggressive thinker. It is harmless to say you don't know when you know. However, to pretend to know when you don't is a disease. He said it's a disease. Second, they are service-oriented. What this means is that when they are service-oriented, they equip themselves with a sense of duty, responsibility, and spirit of service. These are the characteristics that such leaders display. When such a leader has many partners in his downlines, they're preoccupied with a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility, and a spirit of service. Principled-centered leaders constantly think of what to do and how they can help their partners to make them successful. Allow me to share a Western fable with you. It's about a priest and 3 masons. One day, in medieval times, a priest was walking near 3 masons who were working on rocks and asked them a question, "What is it that you are doing?" One mason answered, "Can't you see what I am doing? I am working on a rock." The priest asked the same question to the second mason. "I must put food on the table, so I am working this dirty job." The same question was asked to the third mason. To which he replied, "I might look like I'm doing some nasty work, but the rock I'm working on will make a nice foundation for the new shrine." This mason was looking forward to the future, when his work would be rewarded. He felt proud because his work was valuable. So I am asking you, who would do their job better and faster? Those with a sense of duty and responsibility, obviously. The same can be applied to ATOMY, in which there are 3 types of people. The first group of people doesn't know what they are doing or where they are going. The second group is in for dire reasons or have profit-oriented thinking. They are constantly occupied with the thought of making more money and don't care about others. The third group has a sense of duty and responsibility. They think that despite doing an MLM business, they strive to make their partners succeed, create employment, and contribute to the national economy. With that kind of attitude, your success will be all the more worthwhile. Next, they radiate positive energy. In other words, principle-oriented people radiate good vibes and are pleasant to be around. They always think their business will do well because they think positively and believe in honoring principles. Those with profit-oriented thinking are always in a rush and seem down. They have a hard time speculating where their profit will be next. Therefore, they are always anxious and on the lookout. What I've been telling you so far is from Covey's book. Next, they believe in other people. It's hard to believe in others. When Covey says, believing in others, it doesn't mean to believe in them as they currently are, but to have faith in their potential to become a great, sprawling tree. He means to believe in others' future potential. Those who are on the receiving end will develop their potential, thanks to the faith their sponsor has in them. This man looks familiar, doesn't he? This is Sang-ok Lim, and he left a very impressive saying. He said, "Business is not for creating profit, but for creating human touch." Create what? Human touch. I can't emphasize that enough. Some folks make a profit while stepping on other people. They couldn't care less about other people and only chase profits. They will wind up miserable. In an MLM business, if you value human touch, you will wind up with profit. If you put priority in people, profit will follow. Lim, who was the richest businessman in the Joseon dynasty, knew better than everyone, according to one of the tycoon's sayings. While a small merchant seeks profit, a big merchant pursues people. What's the goal? People. This couldn't be truer in my own experience in life. Those who only care about making profit keep ditching people. Why? Once they have drained that person, they ditch him in a heartbeat to look for someone else to take advantage of. They don't know what gratitude, appreciation, and consideration are. They will end in misery. They will wind up in failure. They might reach a mastership and make some money, but they won't move anyone. You must move people. What's the consequence of touching people? You will make big money. Lim's wisdom teaches us how to sort our priorities. Next, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was an American philosopher who was a pioneer of pragmatism and established it. Trust men, and they will be true to you. If you trust people, they will be loyal to you. Treat them greatly, and they will show themselves great. Treat them greatly, they will show you greatness. But if you mistreat them, they can't. Next is Warren Bennis, the father of modern leadership. It was Warren Bennis who established leadership as a new, valid branch of academics. Leadership without mutual trust is a contradiction in terms. If sponsors and partners don't trust each other, there can't be leadership. Some of you here might have a hard time trusting your sponsors. What could be the reason? We need two things to be able to trust someone. One is morality, and the other is ability. A lack of either one makes it hard to believe in that person. Let's say there is a really nice old man who is good down to the bone, but doesn't have any abilities. It will be hard to trust him as your sponsor. On the other hand, consider a sponsor with many abilities, yet lacks morality and only cares about becoming rich. These two factors create trust, morality, and ability. A lack of either of them will make it impossible to trust that person. A while ago, we talked about one's potential. Based on studies by psychologists and psychiatrists, our conscious mind takes up only 10% of our total capacity. Our subconscious mind occupies the rest, from which our potential springs forth. The potential of this subconsciousness is impossible to measure. Nevertheless, if it were to be developed, the potential would be unlimited. Again, principle-oriented leaders believe in people's potential, not their current abilities, which may be few. Humans possess potential that can't be easily measured. They live balanced lives. They balance their personal and work lives. They are neither workaholics nor lazy couch potatoes. They move on with a balanced life of work and play, are intellectual, and have a good sense of humor. They see life as an adventure. They always seek new challenges and consider how they could take on a new area of business. They are synergistic. When synergy is in play, it's a win-win for everyone. In other words, working smart. They don't hurt others' pride and negotiate for mutually beneficial situations. Naturally, these win-win situations generate synergy. You can use this win-win tactic with your partners and sponsors. You don't need to use your partners solely to seek your profit, or the other way around with your sponsors. You can work this out to benefit both sides. And this can be done because principles are honored. Those who are profit-oriented will only seek their own benefit. Next, there are many kinds of self-renewal. Cool head, busy hands, and exercise are types of self-renewal. Going to seminars and reading books can be types of self-renewal as well. If you don't do these things, you will be left far behind. The principles we're talking about are natural laws. No one can go against a natural law. When you follow natural principles and guide your partners to follow them too, your life as a sponsor will be a lot easier. However, if you introduce your partners while cutting corners, you'll have trouble, as you will have to hold their hands every time. The consequences will be miserable too. What to do next? Do just now. Give ATOMY a try even if it doesn't strike your fancy, and that's what scholars recommend. In this day and age, creating a job is preferable to finding one. As the fourth industrial revolution progresses, 80 to 90% of current jobs will disappear, and there will be no employers left to offer you a job. So you will have to give yourself one. That's what scholars all conclude. What should you do next? Do together. Third, do ardently. Do it with an earnest mind. You might not think this is a big deal, but I saw many indifferent sponsors. Some sponsors take such a casual attitude because they don't have to worry about their livelihood. In the meantime, their partners are desperate to put food on the table. Without an ardent mind, neither of them will succeed. Finally, the conclusion, what is it? Do not give up. Do or die with ATOMY. Stick to your guns and fight. You need that kind of gut to make it big. As you saw, ATOMY provides you with a successful system for anyone, yet not everyone will succeed. Only the ones with uncompromising mental will. Stick to your guns until you all become Star Masters and Royal Masters in 3 to 5 years. Thank you for listening.